Welcome back to Stranded in Pittsburgh as I once again battle with the audio video aspects of StreamYard. But thank you very much for joining us, Nick and Ethan, part of the original. I don't know what to call you. It feels like you were an original member of Stranded. You weren't, but it feels like you were. I thought you were going to say something.
No, yeah.
Oh, no. All right.
No,
You know what?
I mean, yeah. We're off to a great start.
We are. We
A
are.
great start.
We might as
Yeah.
well restart, but I'm not going to do that. I have too much pride to restart this recording. But anyway, Nick and Ethan back at it again. As you can see, just in absolute distress without Nate Breisinger here. And we're coming off an episode where we got some praise. I think very rarely do we get more than like 1 or 2 likes on these, whatever. But we got like 4 or 5 likes last episode. People really like watching an angry redheaded guy scream into a microphone, I think. I'm not going to do that every week because it's just, I'm not going to phone it in. You're going to be able to tell. Last week, that came from here. If I start phoning it in, you're gonna know. But I was glad to see people enjoyed that. Got a few texts about it. So it was nice. Got some new subscribers as well. So welcome in. Please don't take the first 20 seconds of this show as a preview of what we normally sound like. I promise it's more coherent than that on a normal basis. But yeah, but in line of thinking of where we were last week, we're going to put the Steelers at the very end where they belong. We're going to talk about them very briefly at the very end because what are we supposed to say? Everybody's getting all wishy-washy. You got Ben saying stuff on football, and you got George Pickens saying, what am I supposed to do running 3 and 5 yard routes? Just a bunch of BS about the Steeler way. Uh-oh, I feel a rant brewing again. And an awful loss to the Patriots in which the defense held them scoreless in the second half, but somehow, thanks to taking a moonshot on 4th and short, they could have ran the ball twice to get 2 yards, and they chose to run neither. But I digress. They lose to New England, and now they have to play a coherent team in the Colts. They have to play Jake Browning again, who might as well be the next Joe Montana after that first game against Pittsburgh he had. And they have to play Lamar Jackson again. I can't remember who they're. Oh, the Seahawks. The Seahawks, another team with a pulse. So really should have won those 2 games, Pittsburgh. But maybe it's better that you didn't because maybe things will actually change now as a result. But like I said, we're going to put that at the back. I know you're not convinced, but we're going to put that at the back. I promise. We are going to start, though, with Ethan's bread and butter because we've kind of neglected this team. Maybe rightfully so, but we've kind of neglected them over the last couple of weeks. And that's the Pittsburgh Pirates. All kinds of stuff going on here. And Ethan, I got my points I want to talk about. I'm sure you have what you want to talk about, but you've just listened to me set up the whole episode for the last 3 minutes. So I'll give you the pleasure of picking where we dive in here.
Yeah, I think the big news that just came out today on Thursday was that Sportsnet Pittsburgh would be taking in the Pittsburgh Pirates broadcast. Obviously, the Pirates had a lot of had 2 different avenues they could have went to. They could have went the Sportsnet Pittsburgh route, or they could have just gotten their broadcasts produced by Major League Baseball. They chose to go more of the traditional RSN type route. It's not really RSN anymore, but they chose to go with Sportsnet Pittsburgh. And I think for the most part, I think that's the best option from where, I thought that this broadcasting, this whole TV rights deal was going to go. I think it's the best case scenario if you're in the Pittsburgh area in terms of you have the Penguins, you have the Pirates still on that one same coherent network. It's the same brand, basically. It's still everything is really just still the same, just in essence taking over that streaming deal there. Obviously, some faces are leaving the network, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, which is sad to see. But I think overall, I think you're going to see more of the same pieces that you saw in years past back on AT&T, Sportsnet, Root Sports, Fox Sports Network, the whole shebang of Pittsburgh Pirates broadcasting. You're going to see more of the same there. And I think in terms of seeing that instead of a MLB produced broadcast, I think Pirates fans as a whole are going to like that a lot better. And hopefully in the near future, we're going to see a more, I guess, well-rounded streaming base in terms of you're going to be able to stream Pirates baseball without having to have a TV provider and just pay, I believe, a subscription base instead of trying to sign in with your TV provider. And, everyone's big on cutting the cable now. And I think with that coming around, I think sooner rather than later, I think that's what Travis Williams said, I think in an interview earlier today. I think make a lot of fans a lot more happy in terms of how they indulge in watching Pirates baseball.
Absolutely, and this is the avenue I wanted them to go down as well. You would think they'd keep a lot of the positions. Granted, we saw Robbie Isbikowski leave today. Didn't really get if that was a forced outage or a cost-cutting outage or what the reasoning behind that was, but, he's gone. I met him during my Make-A-Wish, which I think a lot of people listening know all about me meeting McCutcheon, his MVP year. So we dive into the, deep details about that one, but I met him, super nice guy. I sent a story in the group chat today, and I thought about it a little more, and that was Rob King who told me that quote, not Rob Spakowski, so I apologize, but I did meet Robbie too, and he was just a really nice guy, and, I wish him absolutely all the best, as I'm sure everyone does. He'd be great on, like, Pittsburgh Talk Live or whatever that show on KDKA is, that morning one that Pompiani did, Selena
Mhm.
Pompiani, I think.
Yep. Yep.
If that still airs, he'd be perfect for that because he's just a goofball, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, he's just like a fun guy. I mean, he was in the little playpen with the kids on the broadcast. He would chase down parents. I mean, he was an entertaining fella to watch, and I think he'd fit perfectly in one of those more casual Pittsburgh talk shows. But anyway, moving into the actual TV deal, I think it makes sense. One thing they've done really well, I think, is kind of grab content that I think is going to make people want to, as you said, buy a subscription if they go to the subscription based model. We've seen them dip their toes into the waters of Duquesne and RMU Sports, and then you got the Penguins, and now you had the Pirates. And as much as the Pirates irritate people, summer day, not much is on, you're going to tune in. And you would think in Pittsburgh, most people watching a network like Sportsnet, most people already know the Penguins are there. Most people know the Pirates are there. But, maybe you buy the subscription now that you get the 2 for 1, and maybe you're not the biggest Penguin fan, but, you have the subscription, so what the hell? I'll throw it on, and you become a little more invested, and vice versa with the Pirates. And like I said, people probably know that option's already there on the 14 other names they've had in the past, but you never know. I think it's just a good model, though, for sustainability, too. You only have one team on the network. It's kind of like, how long can this really last? In a smaller, big market like Pittsburgh. But I think it made a lot of sense, and I'm excited to see what happens with it here.
Yeah, I think when you look at it as a whole, I think as much as people dog on the Pirates and much of the fans don't like watching the Pirates, they still watch them.
Hmm.
They're gonna watch them no matter what, no matter how bad they are, no matter how much they trash them on social media, no matter how bad the product on the field might be. That fan base that it's basically a cult from everyone that watches the Pirates, just how they all gear towards and shift towards every single movement, every single player option, every single transaction that this team makes. Their eyes are going to be glued on that TV, whether they watch it, like whether they watch it on TV or they go to the ballpark. You have that cult following of this team, and you're still going to get a lot of viewership. And I think keeping it all in the same realm, like we've both mentioned, I think it's going to be a very positive thing for this Pittsburgh Pirates TV rights deal moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And another big Pirates news cycle story here is that Andy Rodriguez is out for the entire year with a Tommy John UCL, whatever you prefer to call it. Happened in the Dominican League down there on an at bat. I guess he just swung his bat and there it went. So obviously a huge dagger when you consider that we heard Henry Davis was going to get some more stretches at catcher, but now he's your full-time starting catcher after they basically adjusted him to where him and Endy could live in peace as one, and he was going to be more suited for a right field role or whatever they had planned for him, DH, right field, wherever they were going to throw him, they had him kind of groomed towards that area, and if they needed him to catch, he'd catch, and Now it's just, oh yeah, remember when we said you were going to do a little more catching this year for some longer stretches? Well, now we need you to be the guy. So no added pressure on your top pick from a few years ago now.
I think when you look at this, obviously it's a very huge blow for this Pirates team. Obviously, Andy Rodriguez making his debut last year for the team, and he had his ups and downs throughout the year, batted 220, had 3 home runs. So you didn't really see that full that that full season from Andy. Obviously, he only played for a small chunk of the year, so you wanted to really see how he took off in his second season up at the big league level. Now that's kind of put on the back burner, and that elbow injury is, like you said, Nick's going to keep him out for the next 10 to 12 months, which is a major blow for this team and major blow to the depth that this team had at catcher. All of a sudden, you went from having an insane amount of depth at the position where you didn't know who you're going to put and pull and plug and put guys in and take guys out in the catching position and move guys around the field. But now it's more set in stone of what you're going to see. You're going to see more of Henry Davis behind the dish. You're going to see Jason DeLay as well. And as much the way that I'm looking at this is, as much as it hurts to see Andy Rodriguez go, it completely opens the door for Henry Davis. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk of, can he hold his own at this position? He has a plus bat, but his defending behind the plate is not up to major league standard. Now you're going to see it now. How does he respond? Is it going to be a positive response for him, or are we going to see him struggle behind the dish? We saw him struggle out in right field over the course of the year. He battled with injuries while at the plate. What are we going to see now out of him? If you're the Pirates front office, you want this to be a positive experience for him. You want him to really take this by the horns and really have success behind the plate while also fine-tuning all the tools, because this is what you drafted him for. You drafted him to be that guy behind the plate and also have that solid bat in the lineup. And we've yet to see any of that over the course of his first year. He played from June to now October, battling injuries up in on and off of the IL throughout the year. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to that. But I think where the Pirates are at now, I don't want to say it's obviously not the best case scenario because you lose one of your top prospects in Andy Rodriguez, but you're not losing as much as you would of you have a top prospect and then everything drops off after that. You still got another top prospect in the wings that's been waiting to catch, that's waiting for an opportunity to make an impact at that catching position, that is going to make starts behind the plate. So without Andy now, you're going to see Henry, like I said, take a step up, but you also have a solid backup option in Jason DeLay, who had a successful season last year behind the plate. So you're going to see more of him now playing that backup role, that veteran presence behind the plate, which could help Henry Davis out. So it's as bad as it was seeing Andy go down. I think for the Pirates, you have enough in that depth to where you can fill the void and hopefully move forward. Obviously, there's still a ton of things that this team should do and need to do in order to compete this season and to where this team needs to be at, to where they're capable of competing for a potential wild card spot. But that obviously has yet to be seen.
Very well said. Good point there about Davis. This is his chance now. They drafted him to play catcher, so he's by hook or by crook, he's going to get some reps in at the catcher position. And if it doesn't go well, that's going to be a big blow because now the depth, as you mentioned, is a little thinner. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And it's going to be a major storyline throughout the year. You can guess, and it's probably a safe assumption that's going to be a storyline that gets brought up time and time again as the year goes on. And now Palacios can bump on over to right field and be thankful he has an everyday job, most likely for the time being, unless they dip into free agency, which they did do this week. And as stated in Ben Cherington's contract, he signed a thick man who hits big home runs. And Rowdy Tellez, former Brewer, hit some absolute moonshots, but not going to be a good average guy. We've kind of seen this in the past with G-Man Choi, with Daniel Vogelbach, who the Mets fan base does not appreciate. I don't care what his numbers and advanced stats say. You appreciate that man for everything he brings to the table. So yeah, another signing that everyone's been hampering on the Pirates for not signing anybody. They signed a bat with some home run power. Again, he's not going to be a good average guy, but people are pretty upset about this one. Ethan, do you think that's justified, or do you think this is just a very chill signing? They get a bat with some power. You have that threat in your lineup. What are we making such a big deal about it for?
I mean, yeah, there was rumors that Josh Naylor was potentially a trade candidate for the Pirates, and those rumors started to kind of fizzle out over the past couple of days after Rowdy Tellez got signed to the Pirates. I think those rumors of him getting traded are starting to fizzle out altogether, but that would have been their best option to fill that first base void. And especially now with Endy out, who also could have seen time at first base. That would have been a good signing. But I think as a whole, I mean, yeah, people can get down on him. I think the average being brought up as a concern from the fan base and really anyone else. I think average is kind of played out in terms of a stat to really look at and judge a guy on. You see guys like Kyle Schwarber. I'm not comparing Rowdy Tellez to Kyle Schwarber by any means, but you see him at the top of the lineup. He's not hitting for average. He's hitting for that power bat, that slugging, which is something Rowdy Tellez could do. Had a little bit of a down year last year, only 13 home runs, only slugging 376, OPS of 667. So nothing really flashing over the top there, but he's just, besides that year, he's 1 year removed from hitting 35 home runs, his career high. And he's pretty much in between a 17 to 15 to 20 home run guy every year. So he has the ability to hit for power. I think this is a signing that if you're the Pirates, you have to like, and you're hoping to get some of that power back for you in this lineup that really kind of lacked some power. You obviously got the shorter porch high fence in right field with the Clemente wall, which Tellez can hopefully find some success with in PNC Park and batting at home. So I think that will bode well for him. But I think just overall, I think it's a decent signing. It's obviously not the splash and the signing that a lot of people were wanting from Ben Cherington in this Pirates front office, but I think it's a signing where you filled a void that you really needed to fill, and I think you can continue to move forward. And I think really as a whole, and this free agency period for the Pirates has been very lackluster. I don't think there's been a lot of signings where you really where it really catches your eye, saying that, oh my gosh, like this team is actually making moves to possibly compete.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that really jumps off to you at the table saying like, oh, this is a really key piece. They signed Marco Gonzalez to a deal. Didn't really have the best year last year with the Mariners. And you just see him now, who he could eat up some really big innings for you. You still have Mitch Keller. You have JT Brubaker coming off of Tommy John. So this is a veteran arm that comes in, but there's nothing really flashy. There's nothing that jumps off the table to you as something that is going to be an arm that's going to have a lot of success and help push you closer to that end goal in the postseason. So we haven't really seen that yet from the Pirates, and something that you still got some time in the offseason, but the clock's ticking. You had the winter meetings last week. You had the Rule 5 draft. You had an opportunity to take some guys in the major league portion of that Rule 5 draft that the Pirates chose to pass on. So the clock's starting to tick. You still got some time, but really from where you thought the Pirates would be at this point in the offseason, you haven't really seen that yet. So it's going to be interesting to see where this team turns to as January rolls around after the new year.
Absolutely, and I think the order of operations plays a big deal in the reaction to this signing. There were jokes a couple weeks ago that Mitch Keller was going to be the only guy in their starting rotation for right now. And this is a Pirates team that won 14 games more than they did in 2022. So they got momentum. They've got a surplus of infielder prospects that are, very exciting to watch. All of them had good streaks or continued success all year. Some expected, some surprising. But I mean, this is a team that had a little bit of hype, and you go, all right, listen, the wild card shouldn't be too out of the picture, or at least contending for one. I think 2024 is a year a lot of people had circled for this team. You get O'Neal Cruz back, and it all just kind of lines up. But we haven't seen a Keller extension. We haven't seen a Bednar extension. And extending both of them, is it a fever dream? Potentially, when we think of who is signing checks for this club. But I mean, neither of those things happen. You have McCutchen, who came back, and I think everything's pointed to he wants to wrap it up here. He has not signed a new deal yet. So you're like, okay, what's going on? And then you see your division rivals all building some new pieces, bringing some new guys in, and you counter with a very low risk, maybe high ceiling signing of a pitcher with like a 5 ERA, and then a power bat who didn't have much power last year. But the threat, like I said, is still there. So I think if they did any of the things maybe the fans wanted to see beforehand, this Tellez signing is like, okay, yeah, we got some power in the bat. But now this is their first kind of household name that's been brought into the team. And it's like, really? Rowdy Tellez is the first guy we're going to go after this offseason? They just signed Ohtani over there in LA, and I'm not going to say those are comparable at all. But it's like you see another team have some big news, a big signing, and again, Pittsburgh's not going to make any kind of waves with their signings in terms of financials. But you want to see something promising, something to cling on to and say, okay, they might have got this big name, but look what we've picked up. We've picked up some really helpful pieces. And I don't know if Rowdy Tellez is the guy that you go, oh, goody, we got him. We got our guy. Speaking of getting your guy, Glasnow and Margot to the Dodgers is official, according to the score. So that's just great. I love baseball. So much so that I'm going to ask Ethan if he has anything left to add before we wrap up Pirate talk here.
Yeah, I saw that Glasnow and Margot trade earlier in the day. Yeah, it's nice to see Glasnow moving on to a different team. Had some success in Tampa Bay. Obviously, injuries muddied the waters for him in his time with the Rays, but overall, he's still a very good pitcher. Still has a lot of, I wouldn't say promise because he's more of a veteran guy now, but still has a lot of tools in the bag that he can use. Still has a lot of velocity on his arm. That's a really good rotation piece for the Dodgers moving forward to furthermore add to their depth. And Margot, he's had a lot of success with the Rays and his previous stops as well. So it's a really good move for the Dodgers. But circling back to the Pirates, I mean, I think you will see that Keller extension at some point, whether that be by spring training or during spring training or just even into the regular season. I think that's really on the next piece of steak on the plate for the Pirates front office, if you will. I think that's the next signing, and then locking up Bednar for maybe a couple more years, trying to keep him in control as your guy in the back end of the bullpen. In terms of in-house stuff, so I think those are two that you can really. I think you see Bednar. You have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of team control. You can stretch that out until the next season, the next off season, if you will. Keller, you want to try to get done in this spring training period, especially after the year that he had, and try to get him locked up for a multi-year deal. Obviously, you got Reynolds. Now you want to sign. Now you want to sign Keller for that multi-year extension, and then continue to build inside of the organization there in terms of your signings there. But yeah, I think just the Pirates, I think moving forward, they need to add a little bit more of a solid rotation guy. Even like a guy that can eat innings up. I know we saw guys like Vince Velasquez who went down with an injury. Even though he wasn't a big name guy, he was a guy that was able to eat up innings for you. Or even a veteran guy like Rich Hill, who we knew was going to give up some runs, but really be that rock in the rotation, that veteran guy that can eat innings for you and have a lot of success, which we saw in those early months of the season before he got traded over to San Diego in July with G-Man Choice. So a signing or two more like that. Obviously, it's not some of those big name guys that you're looking at, but I think moving forward, I think that's something that if you're the Pirates, we're looking for realistic signings from this front office. We're not looking for anything that the fans are really clamoring for. I think you're going to see more of those types of signings like you saw last season, but a little bit more mustard, a little bit more oomph in their signings to help push this team forward and take them up a notch from that 14 win and improvement, because it was an improvement. And yeah, there were some lowlights. Yeah, there were some highlights early on in the season and even throughout the middle stages of the season, but you want to see them take it to that next level. And I think with a couple more signings here, a couple more signings there, you're going to get that hopefully moving forward for this Bucco team in 24.
Absolutely. We'll move on now to the Penguins. Won 2 in a row. You're looking at the clientele in this call and saying, oh my God, they're going to talk about the Penguins. And the answer is not for long. Nice win over the Coyotes. I know everyone's going to say, oh, it's the Coyotes. But they needed a win, and they got their win. And then they had a marathon win, 12-round shootout, thanks to Jansen Harkins. 12th round. Unbelievable. To beat the Canadiens. Crosby moved up on the all-time point list as well. We got 2 goals out of Big Jeff Carter against the Coyotes, parking his large self in front of the net, getting one to go in. And then we got Gensel back on the score sheet too. So it was nice to see solid 2 games from them, especially yesterday. They were down early against the Canadiens. So it's nice to see some grit, some heart show up there, and kind of they give up leads a lot, but it was nice to see them come back from a deficit and eke out a win there in Montreal.
I actually watched hockey on Tuesday, so I actually did watch the Penguin game on Tuesday, and finally getting that monkey off their back with the power play goal right off the bat with Gensel. I was shocked to see that find the back of the net and really get things rolling for the Penguins. Obviously, gave up the lead and were trailing in that game, but like you said, Jeff Carter with 2 goals and that deflection. That was a nice goal from Carter there to help the Penguins kind of go on top and get the win there. Obviously, homecoming for Pittsburgh area native Logan Cooley for the Coyotes didn't really do much after everyone was that was the talk of the town throughout the week there. But to really see nothing really happen there was kind of a downer when you look at the all things considered there. But yeah, a really big win for the Penguins on Tuesday. Obviously, it's tough playing that back-to-back with Jari playing Tuesday night and Ned getting the start Wednesday night. How about Ned standing on his head throughout? Like you said, Nick, that marathon on Wednesday going 13 rounds in the shootout. That was something you don't see every day, and probably not something you're going to see for a very, very long time. So, but just for the Penguins to get 2 big wins there. Obviously, you finish out your Canadian road trip, in Toronto on Saturday against the Leafs. That's another big game for the Gwins as they look to head home for their little 2-game holiday homestand with the Wild. Who do they end off with? I forget who they end off with, but they get Ottawa before they take a break until after the holidays. So it's a good stretch here for the Penguins to make some headway in the Metro standings. And I think when you look at this team, there's still a lot of question marks, and there's a lot of questions as to what will Dubas do moving forward in terms of where does Sullivan go. But I think if Sullivan starts to win and gets the boys buzzing a little bit, I think you're going to see this Penguins team. They might be able to rattle off a nice little win streak here as the year comes to a close and the 2024 opens up for this Penguins team. So I think, like I said, a lot of questions. I don't really know what to expect from this Penguins team. We've seen a lot of ups and downs, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions that I think Nate Breisinger said last week. So I don't really know what to expect. You still have the old core together, the band together. So you still get that veteran presence in the lineup. You hope to see some of the younger guys make an impact, but all things considered, a good stretch for the Penguins. And when you look at them moving forward, you look at this team that maybe they could make some headway. Maybe they could make a push and get back into the postseason, but obviously it's just 2 games, so you don't know what's going to happen. But a very good stretch for the Penguins. Can't get too much hope bundled up because you know how that all works with different teams in this town, as we've seen over the past several years. But all things considered, a good week for the Penguins, and hopefully they're going to carry that into the weekend, all things considered, for the team as a whole.
I never would have guessed that was going to come out of your mouth. Probably 90% of that. The Canadian accents that really sold it. I don't know if you meant to do that, and it wasn't very thick, but you can tell you weren't talking in your Morrison tone. But
Nope.
the dads were with the Penguins too. Maybe they should stay all year. That's the most cliche, dumb thing you could have said. But I mean, it was right there. It was low hanging fruit, and you had to grab it off the vine.
Yeah, how about the dad? How about the dads all buzzing in the suite after the shootout goal? Did you see
That
that?
was pretty funny.
They
That
were
was a vibe. I don't
they
like to
were they
say
were
that
high
term,
five.
but
They were high fiving all the Penguins fans down below. Dads were reaching over the suite, high fiving the peasants down in the lower bowl, and
they were feeling good.
they were feeling good after
Had some
after
Labatt
that
Blues
win.
in their hand, and they
Yep.
were going off.
Uh-huh. It was
Penguins talk,
yep.
as always, brought to you by Pure Hockey, our friends through Stadium Scene TV. If you need hockey gear, hockey apparel, NHL apparel, anything you need in the world of hockey, Pure Hockey's got it. I promise. Go there right now through the link in our bio and pick up whatever your hockey needs are just in time for the holiday season. Really, Christmas is only a little under a week and a half away. So go get all your hockey equipment needs from Pure Hockey. Pitt fans got a Christmas present this week when they got their new offensive coordinator, replacing the infamous Frank Signetti Jr. in form of Western Carolina's Cade Bell. The young guy, 30 years old, explosive offenses down there at West Carolina. The Catamounts, baby. I think 37.5 points is what they averaged. Just sounds like a very good signing on paper. Chris Carter of the Post-Gazette wrote a really good article about him and what you can expect from him. Sounds like a lot of play action stuff, a lot of, oh God, I don't know who they're going to go to here, because they kind of make everyone a playmaker. And with guys like Hammond and Bartholomew coming back and some others as well, I think he's going to have a lot of pieces to play with here. I really like this move. It's a young coach. I don't know if anyone would have tapped him as to be the guy. We saw some other names floating around to this Pitt job. I don't know if I saw Cade Bell get brought up before the hiring was made official, but a young guy, you got to think the players are going to like that. And they addressed it early, and Pitt's already had a plethora of moves in the portal so far in terms of guys entering, guys staying put. But I think bringing in a young guy with a very explosive offense in his tape that we've seen so far from his previous gig, I think that's going to do well for keeping guys who may have been on the fence saying, yeah, let's see what happens here. So well done on Pitt's end, at least on paper. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty fun fit, and we'll see what happens once he moves up here to the D1 level, starting in the ACC as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it's a good move for Pitt. I think it's something, if from a fan's perspective, it's something that you are really going to be excited to see. Like you said, Nick, it's a high explosive offensive style from Cade Bell, and it's a team that averaged 37.5 points per game last year and really had success on both ends offensively from the rushing and passing department. So all things considered, a really, really good signing. And I think it's going to open a lot more options for this Pitt offense. Obviously, things looked very stagnant throughout the season. A lot of it was not an offense that it was a well-oiled machine. So I think you're going to see that a lot more. You're going to see a more well-oiled machine and so a lot more moving parts from compared to last year. And I think it's a fresh start for this Pitt offense, and it's something that is going to be very interesting to see how Bell really puts his stamp on this Pitt offense coming up next season.
Absolutely. And I think you kind of mentioned it there. Consistency was just a big issue for this Pitt offense. And when you have three guys play quarterback over the course of the year, that's going to happen, starting with Dracovic. I know Ethan went on a pretty infamous rant on this show about him, so we'll kind of brush over that. Then Veer, and then finally you get Nate Yarnell, and it looks like he's going to be the guy for them, barring anything crazy happening in the portal. Maybe McCord will come to Pitt since he was where was he set to go? Wisconsin?
I think.
Or was it Nebraska?
No, Nebraska.
Yeah,
Nebraska.
I knew the team had red in it. I couldn't remember who it was. It was a Big Ten team with red, which there's a lot of those actually. But yeah, then he said, actually, never mind. So I think he's afraid of competition, McCord. So maybe he'll end up at Pitt. Maybe he wants to go to that big school. I don't believe any of this, by the way. Don't think that I'm trying to speak that into existence. But yeah, so Yarnell looked good. He can make things happen with his feet, make things happen with his arm. Usually I think you'd get a little worried that a quarterback who's finally getting some confidence after a year of a quarterback carousel, then you bring in a new coordinator for him. But I think that this should, I'm not going to call it seamless because you don't want to jump the gun. But I think it has the potential to work out well for him. And I don't think I would be as worried as I would be if other quarterbacks kind of came in, or other coordinator, excuse me, kind of came in, didn't take over someone with limited starting time. But I think this has the potential to work pretty well. So we'll see. Again, a lot of we'll sees on this episode, but that season is quite far away from beginning. So that's probably the truest version of we'll see that we get. The Steelers play the Colts this week. They're going to lose. I don't want to talk about it. They're going to lose. Mitch Trubisky apparently showed signs of promise as the game went on, according to Mike Tomlin. I don't know what those were. He could have thrown 6 interceptions, and I don't feel like that's an exaggeration. There should have been about 5 to 6 interceptions in that game. He lucked out and threw, I believe, only one. One thing I did like about Mitch is that he's much more decisive in terms of if he's going to take off with the ball, whereas Kenny, we know he can run, but I feel like he's a little hesitant, and obviously he got injured running, so maybe he was banged up, obviously, and I think Kenny's been playing banged up pretty much all year, so maybe that's an unfair criticism on his end. But Trubisky is very decisive in terms of when he's going to run, he just puts his head down and does it. That doesn't mean he's doing it in the right scenarios or not. He's throwing balls that are very questionable. I don't trust this team with Mitch Trubisky, and unfortunately, as much fun as it would be to finally give Mason Rudolph his flowers and say, let's just give him a chance, guys. Come on, everybody. Let's root for Mason. Woo. What's going to happen? You're going to throw this guy in when morale seems to be at rock bottom. He's not going to start the game. So if he's coming in, it means Trubisky did piss poor. And morale's going to be even worse. You're going to have a bunch of pissed off receivers, more pissed off than they already are. How's he going to succeed if you throw him in the second or third quarter whenever you give him a chance? I don't see it. I wish they, I don't know if I mean that, but I wish they would have given Rudolph a chance earlier, potentially, but you have to remember too, he hasn't done much when he's had chances before. He's had some nice throws, what have you, but I don't know why people think he's the be-all, end-all, why he was going to be the savior even when Kenny was struggling this year, that he should have jumped the gun and jumped Trubisky. I don't get it. And I don't think there's any scenario where they throw him in and it's just like, hallelujah. I don't get that. I don't know why that's a thought. And no discredit to Rudolph. I mean, Ben outright said he didn't want to help the guy take over for him. So nothing directly, no direct shots fired at Mason Rudolph, but I just don't understand why people have this great idea, have this infatuation with the idea of him coming in and we're all just going to eat our words about it. And maybe I will eat my words. I hope I do, but I don't see how him coming in is in a good way at all. Like I said, morale would have to be so bottom of the barrel by the time he gets into a game. I don't see how there's any way he succeeds. I don't see George Pickens, Najee, and Deontay Johnson go, all right, our guy Mason's in here. Let's really get it together, guy. I don't foresee that happening. I really don't. So they're going to lose. The Colts are far more competent than the Cardinals and the Patriots this year. You lose to two-win teams at home, basically to guarantee a playoff spot, you would guarantee another winning season for Coach Tomlin, and you get embarrassed in both of them. You come out and fall flat on your face in both of them. They're not going to beat the Colts. But then again, this is a game they have no business winning that they might end up winning, which is something they're also very good at. And it would be the ugliest thing in the world, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Colts win this one, and I think things get worse before they get better. I don't want to think about them anymore.
The Steeler way. It's been brought up a lot this week by former Steelers. Just basically saying, oh, this isn't the Steelers team that I played for. Oh my gosh, the Steeler way. None of these guys are exemplifying anything that the Steeler way stands for. This, that, and the other. But you know what the Steelers way is, Nick? The Steelers way is to win games that they have no business winning.
Oh, no, I bought right into his bull
down
before he even said it.
They play down to their competition, which they did the past 2 weeks. But a game that they should lose after everything that has gone bad for this team over the past month, in a game that they should lose, against a backup quarterback in Gardner Minshew, they will somehow find a way to pull it off. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be a battle throughout, and a game that everyone will want to scoop their eyes out if they have access to NFL Network on Saturday. But it's going to be an ugly game. And for all intents and purposes, I think the Steelers might, somehow pull it out. Crazier things have happened. I have no confidence in this team at all. We've seen how they played. Hell, I didn't even watch the game last week. And I looked at Mitch Trubisky's stat line in the fourth quarter, and I was like, oh my gosh. He was like 2 for 12 at that point with 57 yards and an interception. The defense fell flat on their face. The defense gave up 20 points to the Patriots in the first half. If they didn't give up those 20 points in the first half, and the Steelers' offense was actually competent in that first half of play, they could have easily won that game. There's been some bright spots to this team. Obviously, it's been covered up by all the dark spots.
Wow.
But crazier things have happened. Do I think they march into Indianapolis and Lucas Oil Stadium on Saturday and pull out a victory? I do. Because,
unbelievable.
At this point in the season, what do you have to lose? You need to come out firing on all cylinders. You have to be wanting to take shots now, because you might be 7-6. You might have fell flat on your face the past month. You might have just fell flat on your face the past month. You might have just said, oh, woe is me. The receivers, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, the whole gang of receivers that have been, we suck. I don't get targets. What do you have to lose? You're still in a playoff spot. You're still fighting for a playoff spot. You're in perfect position. Teams that needed to lose lost last week to where you've thrusted yourself back into playoff position. There's still hope for this team. And oh my gosh, I might think that I might have so much hope. Just make this season competitive. You're already going to be drafting middle of the pack. You've already blown your chances to blow up this season and draft high at this point. So what do you have to lose? Seriously, what do you have to lose? This team's in a spot to make the playoffs. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Their schedule is very treacherous over the next month towards the end of the season. You got 2 more divisional battles. You got a divisional battle against the Bengals next week, which I am attending, which is part of the reason why I want the Steelers to win this week, so I can actually watch a game of meaningful football for the last time this season. I want to see that. That's part of the reason why I want the Steelers to win this Sunday. And I think it's an ugly game. Just give me one more little bit ounce of hope for this team that has given me hope at so many points this season and has torn me down every single time that they've given me hope. They gave me hope after the Bengals game. You know what? They put that down the toilet the next week against the Cardinals. I didn't watch the game last week, but they played this about the same as they did against the Cardinals, so there was no hope gained there. But now you're like, people are feeding you a chance to make the playoffs. Come out firing. Mitch Trubisky looked terrible the last game. You obviously have to ride with him now. Like you said, Nick, there's no shot they're going to put in Mason. I don't think there's any shot anymore. Like you said, you had your opportunity. I said they needed to do it earlier on in the year. You gave Kenny until that game against the Cardinals, and you made up your mind. If you went with Mitch, you go with Mitch. You have to rock with Mitch. You need cohesiveness. You can't keep memo-jammering quarterbacks left and right because you got Kenny out to injury twice this year. You had to turn to Mitch. You got to have some cohesiveness on this offense. Obviously, the Steelers' defense, they fell flat on their face last week. They need to bounce back. TJ Watt had some issues with concussion protocol last week. I believe he's all good to go, so you need to get your defense back up. We haven't seen Micah Patrick do jack all season long. There needs to be something. There needs to be that splash play on defense once again that can get this team energized like they did earlier in the year, because it's possible. It's possible that for them to eke out games. We've seen them do it all season long against mediocre competition, which is what you're seeing in the Colts and the Bengals. Yes, they are a lot more competent than the Steelers at this point in the season, but it's still a matchup that you can eke out a win. We're not playing you're not playing the Ravens, who are, I believe, 10-3 now on the year, who just won in overtime against the Rams, who I still think is a very winnable game because it's a division battle, and the Steelers seem to always eke out a win, whether it be at home or on the road once a year for against the Ravens. Obviously, they got the win earlier on in the year, but it's definitely a game that you have circled on your calendar, especially it being in the last week in the season. So there's, like I said, there's still hope. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think I'm going to want to bang my head off of a cement wall after this game is over on Saturday. But I think it's a game where if the Steelers stay in it and they have some life, it only takes one. It only takes one drive. It only takes one throw. The Steelers team can eke one out on the road, come back home for their final home game of the year before they make their Lewis and Clark trek out to the West Coast to Washington and play the Seahawks before they end the season with a divisional battle back all the way over on the East Coast in Crab Country in Maryland to take on the Ravens. So it's going to be an interesting ride to the finish. Whoa. And I'm done.
I don't think we need to do final thoughts this week. I think that about covered it. I think it did. Good luck to Pitt women's volleyball. They're playing right now against the Cornhuskers, who are probably a little upset they're not getting Kyle McCord. So Pitt should win that one. Anyway, next week will be the Christmas Spectacular. No episode the week of Christmas that I know of. We'll see how we feel that week. But plan on bringing your ugliest Christmas sweater to the recordings next week. It's going to be a good one. You're not going to want to miss it. Stranded in Pittsburgh. For Ethan, I am Nick. We will see you next week.